Let's welcome in our good friend from the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon. Good morning, Sam.
Hey, what's going on?
Nothing. We're going to get into your thoughts on the Husker Games in just a moment.
Yeah, don't you worry about it.
Don't run anywhere.
Yeah.
All right.
Let me ask you, and I imagine that you guys are going to write about this. So, about a year ago, Nebraska volleyball went to Kearney to play their annual summer or their spring exhibition match. Harper Murray was not going to be with them because her sister was graduating from Michigan, so she was going to be back home in Ann Arbor. As the bus is pulling up on a Friday before the Saturday scrimmage in Kearney, John Cook is in the front row and he gets this text about, Harper Murray is in trouble. If you go from that moment to, heck, even let's say a year later, and they're going to play in Ord this weekend, how would you write a story? And you've written plenty about Harper Murray. How would you write a story about her last year?
It's really triumphant. You know, it's an incredible story of growth. You know, and again, like that's kind of the human experience, right? Like we make mistakes, we grow from them, we get second chances, and I think she's made the most of hers. I certainly think she's got a really good heart. So anybody who's ever kind of watched that, the BTN documentary about her, and then the ESPN documentary, which I thought was very good. Not everybody loved it. I thought it was very good. I think understands, what her experiences were growing up, and just the sensitivity that she has to a lot of different things in a good way. And so, like, I think there was, within the person who made some of the mistakes she made is a real leader, and somebody who has the ability to connect with people. I think that's a talent she has, a skill that she's cultivated. I thought that was very generous offer that she had on I guess that we call it X now last night. So yeah, I think she's she's grown a lot. She had really good teammates. She had a great coach in her corner. I think really helped when you have somebody like that in your corner and is willing to stand behind you and is willing to do the right thing and be loyal in that moment. And I think she's repaid that, tenfold. So I think that's probably the story. It's just such a overwhelmingly decent person who's really grown. And again, she's going to have a long career in pro volleyball wherever she wants to have that, whether it's in the States or somewhere else. But she's I think she could be destined for more kind of leadership roles outside the sport too.
I agree.
That's going to be her call. But there's all kinds of different kind of leaders. So there's quiet leaders, and I think Harper Murray actually can be a very vocal leader and can be somebody who galvanizes that team, and that might be what they need. And then off the court, I think she just has a quality that connects with people and athletes, young girls and athletes love her.
And she's still got 2 years left.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Pretty cool.
Sam, post the Nebraska volleyball exhibition match with Kansas, Rebecca Alec was at the stand talking post game, and she talked about how John Cook has just built such an incredible program that despite who the head coach is, that top athletes are immediately going to look at Nebraska volleyball. But we all know that winning way needs to be retained. You need to continue to have that culture and that tradition for that to still be the case. In comparison to building a program, how difficult is it for just any coach to retain that type of level of success when coming after the coach who built it?
Well, I think if it were somebody other than Danny Busboom Kelly, maybe it'd be a different conversation.
Sure.
But she played there for Cook. She coached under Cook. She knows it as well as anybody could. And so I don't think it's going to be as hard for her to maintain as it might be some coach who is less familiar with Nebraska volleyball than she is. I mean, she's really done it at every level. And so I think she understands what needs to stay the same, and then how to put her own mark on it. And I think she's not gonna make it about herself. I think she's a pretty selfless coach, and everybody can already see that. She's going to be a little different in post. Just a little different, and maybe isn't gonna say quite as much. And she'll be a little bit more reserved in some ways, but super authentic, and talk about competitive, and talk about driven. This is a coach who has been to the finals twice in the last 4 years, and I think Nebraska has too. And like you talk about somebody who wants to bring Nebraska another national championship. It's a former player who wasn't quite able to win the title at Louisville. She's going to be very hungry. And I think the players will sense that. And this is a hungry team too, because I think the team knows they're as good as anybody. And they fell a little short the last 2 seasons, but they don't have to fall short this year. And so I think it's going to be a good match. Now, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball that looks into 15 years from now.
Yeah.
But I think the program's in terrific shape, and she'll maintain that. And I think, if you were going to ask me, are they going to win a national title in the next 4 years? I would say yes, because
could be this year.
They've gotten really close, and I think they'll get over. I think they'll get one, and it will not surprise me one bit if it's this season or next season.
Hey, what do you believe to be true about the pursuit of Marty Brown?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I think there's more than 2 schools involved. I think Nebraska certainly values him, and had a genuine, all hands on deck kind of a visit with him. So they're putting their effort in. So I think Nebraska wants it. Now all that said, you gauge to some degree the financial piece, and Nebraska has what it has. I mean, it probably doesn't have at this stage of the game as much opportunity as a Cal does. He could start at Cal.
Yep.
I feel pretty confident of that. I don't think he's Nebraska's starter. I really don't. I think Emmett Johnson's going to start, and I think that needs to be the case. Emmett's put the work in, and I'm not trying to say that Marty didn't put in the work at North Dakota State, but Emmett's put the work in, and he's been waiting for this for a while, and he's the guy. And so I think Marty Brown would have to come here and understand he's not the guy right away. He might be the guy, but he's not going to be the guy right away, I don't think. I think he'll be, your power back who comes in maybe in the red zone, but maybe gets 10, 11 carries a game. Well, at North Dakota State, he was getting 20. So I think there's the question. I think that's true, and it'll probably come down to playing time versus what Miami might be able to pay versus what Nebraska can, and also just Nebraska's going to be really honest with him that he's going to have to come in and earn his playing time, and then again, Emmett Johnson's just ahead. So that's what I think is true. Now I want to say this too: Marty Brown is a very, very good football player, and breaks tackles, carries tacklers with him, bounces off of guys. He will grow wherever he goes, whether it's Cal, Miami, or Nebraska. He's going to grow in his open field skill set, and it's that's just going to take some time. At North Dakota State, he was playing in I formation. Sometimes he was a lead blocker for Cole Payton. Like, he's a very physical player. Nebraska would ask a guy like that to come in and say, all right, you're going to have to work on all the versatility pieces. You're going to have to catch the ball out of the backfield. You're going to have to do this and this and this, because to play in Dana Holgerson's offense, you're going to have to do all those things. So he would have something to work on if he got here. He's not going to be like a program solver right off the bat.
The 2025 NFL draft for Nebraska football was what?
Decent. Maybe a little less than what Nebraska was hoping. On a perfect day, I'm sure they hope they get 5, and then they'd be able to say, hey, most since 2011.
Sure.
The process is working. I think the 2 guys that got drafted were the 2 that were consensus to be selected. And then I thought somebody would take Nayor. I did. I thought somebody just, hey, you know what? bring this guy in.
Yeah.
As it is, he goes to the 49ers, and they've got some interesting issues with receivers. So like maybe he catches on there and he's good. I didn't think Nash would probably get drafted, and then poor Tommy Hill, that foot issue, that stuff. So he's going to have to prove it. Obviously, Tommy could be a year away from full health, and you just never quite know. So.
Yeah.
I think it was about what I expected. I think Nebraska is still growing in its NFL draft profile. I do think that I'm going to have a mailbag for tomorrow, and I'll talk about some of the most draftable players for 26 and 27. Obviously, in 27, you have Dylan Raiola.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to be a genuine option. And I encourage people to go and look at Miami's offense and Cam Ward in it. And I'm not saying that Dylan Raiola is going to be the number one pick, but people may not know this. Miami's offensive coordinator, his name is Shannon Dawson. He worked 8 years for Dana Holgorsen, 4 in West Virginia and 4 at Houston. People want to see what's possible with Dylan Raiola and Dana Holgorsen together as a passing offense. You go watch Cam Ward's highlights, and you'll see a lot of what Nebraska might theoretically be able to do. Now, do they have as good of players as Miami? I don't know. Are they playing tougher defenses than Miami faced? Yes, they are.
Mm-hmm.
But conceptually, you can see where it's going. And you can look at Cam Ward, you can look at Dylan Raiola, and you're not going to see a lot of throws from the pocket that are that much different. Dylan can do all the things that Cam does from the pocket. Cam can get outside and run and do other things, and that's where Raiola's got to grow. But there's some reasonable comps there, and the offenses that they're playing in are going to be similar. Not maybe perfectly exact, but similar.
Speaking of undrafted free agents, for anybody that would like to know about Tommy Hill. So Tommy Hill has just been invited to the Vikings minicamp.
Right.
He posted on his IG nothing but Tommy Hill going up against Travis Hunter. So, I mean, it's a curious case of what happened to him. We think we know, maybe we don't,
Right.
but the medicals must have cleared that the Vikings are going to invite him. Let's go now that the spring is over, and now we're going to go into the offseason, and already the post-spring top 25s are coming out. And On3 has Nebraska as number 22. The win total is going to be 7.5. We'll sit here and go 8. Could they get to 9? If there's a hesitancy in you saying this team will make a jump from 7 wins to 9 wins, where would you focus on?
Well, quite specifically, and I know this is a very broad category, but road games. And so here's where Nebraska's at, if we're going to be really honest. They've struggled away from home for years, and they haven't always been great at home either, to be clear. But they've struggled away from home for a long time, and so let's put it at 2.5 over and under on games away from home. And I've given this to a couple of media members, and they all took over. And I said, okay, you can take over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you want to say they're going to beat Cincinnati? That's fine. You want to say they're going to beat Maryland? I'm with that too. Maryland will have 18 people at the game, and they're not very good. But so you're telling me they're going to win 1 of 3: Minnesota, Penn State, and UCLA. Well, they haven't beaten Minnesota in 10 years. They just got they got taken to the house by UCLA last year, and they did. I mean, they were down 27-7 or whatever it was.
At home.
You see that at home, and Penn State. I mean, that might be the best team in the Big Ten. So, there's the answer right there. If you can't win more than 2 games away from home, well, then you're already staring at 9-3, and that means you got to go perfect at home. And perfect's hard. That's hard. And so, if that's where they've got to get better. They got to get a bit better away from home. You look at it. I mean, they lost to Michigan State a couple of years ago. I think in the last 5 years, and don't hold me to this. I think in the last 5 years, the only time they've won 2 games away from home was in 22, when they won at Rutgers and at Iowa. But in 21, I don't think they won a single game away from home. In 24 or 23, they won 1 game away from home in Illinois.
Yeah.
And in 24, last year, they won at Purdue. And was there another one? I don't think there was. Right? So they lost at Ohio State, at Iowa, at USC, at Indiana.
Yeah, all right.
So they went 1-4 in 23, 1-4 in 24.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, I'm like, 2.5. Oh, over. Okay. Okay,
Hmm.
okay. But see, that's how we are.
Yeah,
Like, that's
yeah.
how we operate. It's like, oh, yeah, over. Oh, really? Well, they haven't went over in any of the years, most recent years. Not in 21, 22, 23, and 24, but they're just going to go over this year. Nah, they got to prove it.
Yeah.
It's that line. I love The Social Network, the movie. And if your clients had been the inventors of Facebook, they would have invented Facebook.
Yeah.
If Nebraska is going to make the jump, they need to make the jump. You can't say they're going to do it until they've done it.
Yep.
And they're going to have to go on the road and win games on the road. And that means going down to Arrowhead and not winning 21-20 on a luck, but going down there and taking care of business. And then it means, yes, beating Maryland at Maryland with 18 people in the stands. Then it means going and beating Nico Imlieva at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
You got to go do it. And so I think Matt Rule certainly understands it, and I think that team does too. But there it is. I think they've got to find a way to win away from home.
No, that's a great little nugget. Sam, always great to see you. Now we get to the off season. Always enjoy the conversation. Have a good week, my friend.
See you, Sam.
4 months away. Bye.
Yes, 120 days, right?